And I see very few in Australia, South Africa. Some of the politicians in Australia, of course, have banned fracking. And so what can you do to frack up his image? Talk about this talk. Get Slickwater from Ireland. Buy a copy of Slickwater and mail it to Justin and say, read this. I did, and I live in Ireland. Have you read this? What are you going to do about it? Send a copy to Catherine McKenna. What are you going to do about it? And CC somebody in the UK. CC Third Energy, or CC May. Or pick a politician. Use your imagination.
Any other questions?
Jessica, of course, here in the north, we have a situation where we have no government in place, or no executive, or no politicians willing to sit down and look at a whole pile of issues. So, what should the community do where we have no government in place? And also, I suppose, the other thing is about the government. Maybe Eddie would be fit to talk better on this, about the things like CETA deal and that sort of thing, where the governments are going to have to pay these large corporations maybe in the future for lawsuits.
Well, we have, I'll start to your second bit first. Thanks for that. We have the Lone Pine lawsuit in Canada, which, when Quebec brought its frack ban in, Lone Pine, I think, spent a few $100s getting leases in Quebec. And they are in massive debt to the tune of about $250 million. I'm not saying the numbers accurately because I don't have them in front of me. But when Quebec brought in its frack moratorium based on the review of the environmental organization, or like regulator in Quebec, saying this is too dangerous. They said fracking is way too dangerous and too harmful to allow. So they put that moratorium in, and Lone Pine sued the federal Canadian government for $250 million, which is the amount that they're in debt for, after spending a few $100s on leases. But under NAFTA, which is our trade agreement with Mexico and America, you can't interfere with an oil company's imaginary profits in the future. And CETA is much worse. So we already have that. Here, with no government, try something new. You've got a great opportunity, actually, to prove to the world who needs government. Maybe become so vocal in unique ways. You're going to have to brainstorm it, though, and come up with ideas. I'm sure some of the great Irish neighbors of yours to the south will help you. But brainstorm amongst yourselves, even just thinking of ideas. I don't know what they are, you don't know what they are, but if you get together and brainstorm, come up with something that'll shake things up around here. Maybe say, well, you guys don't want to be here sitting in doing your jobs, we don't want you at all. You're all fired, and we're banning fracking without you. Write a constitution. Write a frack legislation, write a frack ban legislation on your own, and get as many people to sign it as you can. Yeah, sure, they'll stomp all over you, but the investors do not like communities that have courage. They don't like to come in. So your government may trample all over you 2 years from now, but your taking your own action may keep the companies out by yourselves.
Thank you. Yes, I heard you speak when you came over here last, was it 4 years ago, was it? When it looked as though Northern Ireland was the test bed for fracking in the UK. We're now fortunate that threat's receded, though it hasn't gone away altogether. And now, of course, you know, it's our neighbours across the water who are facing that. I was in Lancashire myself a few weeks ago at Preston New Road, and Kirby Misperton's actually near where I used to live, so it's very acute. But I think you probably agree that this is something about fracking, that they are globally networked companies and industry, and it's a kind of whack-a-mole thing. You know, if they disappear in one place, they're going to pop up in another. So leading on from that, what sort of ideas, inspiration, suggestions have you got for how we can support each other globally, so that you know, we're not just saying no fracking in our backyard, but no fracking in anybody's backyard?
Great question. Yeah, before I came here, I was in Kirby Misperton and then Derbyshire and Lancashire. And the thing that hit me the most was how angry people are over there. Guacamole. Shark attack. Usually the worst shark attacks happen when you don't see the shark, right? So you can use that same attack. Right now, even though people in England are being fracked, you have a quiet spell over here. So now's the perfect time to pretend you're sharks and go in for the kill. You don't need to use any violence. Imagination is much more powerful than violence, and loving each other and supporting each other. But as you support the people there, come up with some ideas. I can't tell you what they are, but don't stick it to just social media, because that's always expected, that there's going to be comments on Facebook and Twitter. Go beyond that. Make a really huge card, a banner, a massive banner. Get the kids to draw on it. There's nothing more beautiful than art. Get everybody you can to sign it, roll it up in a huge tube, and mail it to each one of those communities in support of what they're going through. Because you know the companies will come back if you don't do something. When the companies see that kind of support, again, the companies don't care, but the investors don't like that. So you can do that. You don't need to spend the money to go over there. Well, anybody here have an idea that's never been done? Think of something that's never been done before. We have these incredible imaginations that are infinite. And all you have to do is stretch them and keep thinking and thinking until you stumble upon something that's never been done before. How many people do you know have a court case and they don't show up at the courthouse where the hearing's taking place? It was a very simple thing. It came to me one day out of the blue, and I thought, oh, I can never do that. That would be so embarrassing, and how stupid to do something like that. And it came to me in September. My court hearing was January. And the more I thought about it, the more I knew I had to do it. I didn't even tell my best friends, because what I wanted in the courtroom was banana, 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 banana. Where's Jess? Where's Jess? Where's Jess? Where's Jess? Where's Jess? So that when I had my lawyers read an announcement into the court to tell them where I was, and the defendants could have yelled, "Objection! That's improper!" Right? She's not even here, and you're reading some statement of hers. Like, this is ridiculous. But they all the judge and the defendant lawyers went like this. Right? They wanted to, where is she? Because banana, banana. That's a very powerful thing. Curiosity. Human beings are like cats. Very curious. So that took me, October, November, December, 4 months. And when I finally told my lawyers what I was going to do, I said to them, you're not going to like this idea, but it doesn't matter what you say to me. I have to do it. And you will heed me. So I told my lead lawyer and the other junior lawyer, and there was this horrified silence for about 30 seconds and then roaring laughter. And he said, it's actually really great. And we got the case moved back to where it belongs, because it so humiliated the judges. Their corruption screamed, right? What other things could you do here? Are your politicians being paid? Is there any way anybody could garnish their wages? Like, no, but look into it. Maybe talk to some lawyers and ask them, is there any way, our politicians are not working, can we put a stop payment on their checks? It's our money, right? We want them working for us. And even by the process of trying to put a stop payment on their paychecks, think of the hell that'll raise, right? Yeah, it's a ridiculous idea, but those politicians will not be happy if suddenly their pay's at risk. Yeah, one thing I want to say to add into what your concern is, you want to support your communities because you're feeling compassion for over there. It's very terrible what's happening. I went down to the sites. It's awful. I've lived it. The impacts are really terrible. So how can you compassionately support what's going on over there? Don't let them become victims. It's one of the best things you can do. So when you see people behaving like victims, which is a horrible place to be as a victim, and nobody wants to fight with a victim, bring them back up, carry them back up, hold them, and point out to them. That's victim talk. No, we're going to win this. UK is going to ban it. And then the other thing you have to do is there are going to be sacrifices. I'm one of them. So just remember me and what I'm doing. I'm going right down into total oblivion, right? I'm losing everything I have on a case that's never going to go anywhere. But look at the awareness it has brought the world about how bad fracking is. That's worth $100 million. That's worth more money than the companies are making on a well. It's only costing me $1 million the rest of my life type of thing. But I will never be a victim in this. So when you feel yourself slipping or you see others, just say, well, look, Jess isn't going to let herself, she's not going to play victim, so don't you. And then the other thing you have to remember, there will be some people fracked. Those communities are going to get fracked. Roads will be damaged, water will be contaminated. There's already contaminated water in Scotland from fracking coal bed methane wells. That happened years ago. There's gas migration. So those terrible things that happen, use them.
Where in Scotland did that happen? Sorry.
I don't know where right now, and the name of the company is right here somewhere.
Scotland.
Where is it?
ARCH. It's the old. There's about 12 wells. Enniskillen owns the license.
Yeah, Enniskillen.
But it was old iGas wells. It was iGas.
Yeah, I think if you Google it, you'll find information on it. I suspect what will happen over there in England is that when Quadrilla was drilling, they were causing earthquakes. They will cause more earthquakes, and there will be damages. And we're going to lose. We will lose some historic resources. Some buildings will fall. Some people will fall. It's the same as war. I hate to tell you that. Like, I wake up every day knowing I'm on a battlefield that I don't want to be on. But the good thing that comes out of those bad things is you talk about them all over the place. You make sure everybody knows about them. All your local councillors, the baker, the butcher, the car mechanic, your radio ham operators, if you have those here. You tell everybody, and more and more and more and more awareness comes. When I started the lawsuit, most people knew nothing about fracking.
Thank you very much for your talk. What struck me particularly seems to be the complete breakdown of the system, the civic system that is meant to protect society. A regulator who doesn't regulate, a justice system that does not give justice, a police that does not protect the people, but the polluters. All that. You still keep fighting with a system that does not work. What made me think, with all these people who are suffering and who have dirty water and might have health problems and have to live in properties that have turned valueless, why is there not more sabotage? So fighting in a court system that you from the beginning know will not give you justice. Why waste your time and money? Why not go and cut these water lines? Why not put sugar in the tanks of the trucks? Why not light the methane containing tanks and have lots of explosions everywhere? I'm not in favor of attacking people, but methane explodes well, as you showed, and there you have imagination and potential.
That's fantastic question. Series of questions, yeah. The unfair part is I have to try to respond to that. That's a very good series of questions. Why is there not more sabotage? There has been some. Weibo Ludwig, do you know about Weibo Ludwig in Alberta? He was on one of my slides, and I didn't mention him. When he died, the police, they never fingerprinted me, right? But they wanted to get his corpse to fingerprint him. He was found guilty of sabotage. And Canna, when it was a precursor company, poisoned his family, his farm with a lot of sour gas, deadly stuff. They had abortions, they had all kinds of livestock problems, and none of the regulators would help him. So he resorted to sabotage. There's a fantastic book. The same author who wrote Slickwater wrote a book called Saboteurs. It's absolutely brilliant book to read, and it tells all of the Weibo Ludwig story. Not all of the Weibo Ludwig story, but to quite a point. Why is there not more? I really don't know. I'm kind of surprised. Methane explodes really well. So do some of the toxic chemicals, the fumes off of those in these tanks. I think it's kind of a stupid statement, but the companies are causing enough explosions of their own without any help from any saboteurs. People are dying all over the place. Like that. This talk is one tiny, tiny part of the impacts. The number of deaths, there's just another offshore rig that just blew. So maybe the saboteurs realize we don't have to waste our time exposing this industry. They're doing it themselves. The other reason might be that whenever people phone wanting to do violence to me because they're so angry, and that's all they can think about, their children are being poisoned. And so they see red, they see rage, and they can't control themselves. I discourage it because if there's any sabotage will be used to discredit everybody. Sure. Yeah, and you saw what happened with the new updates. Look at that. The bacteria, the E. coli, how that was used. So imagine if somebody, they've been trying to name me a terrorist. They're still trying to get me to act out. The regulator does all kinds of terrible things to me to try to get me to freak out, to then say, look at her, she's just a screaming, radical, vexatious litigant, terrorist woman. She's mad. Well, they called me a threat to the public and a threat to their staff. So any acts of violence or sabotage, we lose credibility. And I think what's happened around the world, the ordinary people who have no education in this industry and no science education are seeing how bad things are, how we have given our power away to these companies around the world, and they are finding other ways. It's pretty exciting how the Elsie book took First Nations in New Brunswick. Do you remember, did you see the images of the woman who was kneeling in front of all the really heavily armed? Your police aren't armed, our police are heavily armed. And she was kneeling in front of a massive line of heavily armed police in New Brunswick. The First Nations there said no, and she's holding a feather on her knees. And that image flew around the world. That has more power than an act of sabotage, I believe. Why am I doing what I'm doing when everything's just an absolute impossible loss and I keep going? Because I'm having such a massive impact. I'm not doing it to make money. I'm doing it to expose the truth. And for the Supreme Court of Canada to break the law in a written ruling, I don't have to make anything up to prove my statements in my talks. I have court rulings proving what these judges are doing. There are lawyers in Canada that are, and the states that are livid with the Supreme Court of Canada. That's great impact. And I didn't even have to do anything. I didn't even go to Ottawa. And they took a year to rule. The world is going, what's with these judges? Well, they were busy trying to figure out, number one, how to punish me, how to make me quit, and then how are they going to put in their ruling their dirty deeds. Do we need to engage in violence or sabotage when we have courts doing that for us? I don't think so. I think the corruption is speaking for itself. It's becoming obvious to many, many people. And ordinary people are discovering a much better way, and that better way is finding different ways of energy. You have China and India and France saying we're going alternate energy on a really big scale. The oil and gas companies are scared because their industry is going down, and the bankruptcies in Canada are proving it. Who wants to go to jail? Right, if you commit sabotage, I mean, they've got 43 anti-terrorist officers in Alberta just to watch for sabotage and acts like that and try to intimidate me. So is it worth it? Is it worth it to, with our incredible brains and imagination and community spirit, can we not come up with a better way to raise awareness than an act of sabotage? Like, how many of you here think, when you're so enraged that that's the only thing you can think will solve the problem?
That's
Violence.
what they want us to do.
Exactly. Very good. Very good. So they're going to make us more and more and more and more angry. That's why you have a 90-year-old woman being hauled off to jail. That's why you have a young mother holding a baby, having her baby taken away, and she's hauled off to jail. They want us to do that. The reason they've been treating me so badly is they're waiting for me to break the law. And then they'll all punish all of you because you had me over here in your country. But they will. They will. So we rise above that, and always, some days, the Lancashire people were in such a rage that the room, I mean, it was just reverberating with fury. And I could feel it as I did my talk, so I was talking a lot about anger. When I found the record, imagine me, a scientist, I'm working for Encana. I live in this beautiful little theater arts community. I have just rescued these most incredible dogs, and I fell head over heels in love with that dog Bandit like I had never been in love ever before. And then I find these records where a company has fractured into our drinking water aquifers. To me, that's rape. That is rape of all the children in my community, all the women, me, and I'm working for this company. I was so furious. And I ran around chasing everybody in my community and all over Alberta and politicians. Oh, you have to see this. You have to see, oh my God, you gotta read, oh, look at that. They're all falling on the floor. You have to look at this. I hope there's no big secrets in here. But I did that. I ran and ran and said, look, 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 right? I said, look. And everybody ran away from me. Well, I just grabbed everybody's arms and I was wanting them to read the data. And I was very angry. Who likes to be around an angry person? Who likes to work with an angry person? We don't. It's not nice. And anger is not a primary emotion. It's a secondary emotion. And it's usually when we are going to lose something, right? We have it's an expression, we have a fear of losing something and we can't express it, so we get angry. So what are we losing with fracking? Family, health, water, home, community, beloved animals, roads. Pardon? Tourism. You have fantastic tourism here, so small business, large business, income. Are your politicians not working because of the ban in Southern Ireland? They might be. Well, no, who knows why they're not working? So you've even lost your government here. Food, good food. I love your food here, the taste. So back to anger, I learned suddenly, all of a sudden, I just withdrew. And more people became more and more abusive to me, trying to stop me. Every time I spoke out with new information, I'm tired. With new information, I just withdrew and studied more and more. And suddenly, people from all over the world came to me. Can we see a copy of those records? Can we see that data? Could you show that to us again? My anger was gone. And suddenly, more and more things had gone wrong. And they wanted to see the evidence for themselves. So,
I think with that, Jessica is worn out. She's been chatting around for almost 2 hours, and I'd like to thank her again very much. Thank you.
Thank you.